If you want to fish from the shore successfully, you must learn to cast properly. There are times when only a short cast is necessary, but it is essential to have the option of being able to throw your bait well over 130 metres. I'm Ian Heaps, but the man who's going to show us exactly how to do this is John Holden, internationally known for his casting skills. John, what are the secrets to this distance casting?
It's all about efficiency, both of tackle and yourself, using as much muscle as you can and using a rod that will do a proper job.
Can you tell us something about the rod to start with?
Consider it in 3 sections.
Yes.
It's got a very stiff butt here. And I push down on this, it's 60 or 70 pounds pressure going in there.
And not a lot of bend in it.
Right. That means that I can use a lot of effort, a lot of leverage. I won't say effort because it never feels that way. You use a lot of leverage. Get plenty of speed going into this section.
Yeah. So first of all, important, it must be a stiff butt section.
Stiffish.
Stiffish, yes.
Yeah. Not a sloppy one that's going to bend about all over the place.
Yeah. You won't be able to get the power into it.
Yeah, it just absorbs it.
Yeah.
Then you move on to this middle section here, which is fairly fast taper.
Yes, I can see that.
That's like a big spring. You channel that power to there, and then it's going to go through to there. Now, what you have to do is retain smoothness of delivery, and everyone makes mistakes in casting. One of the things you need to do is have some kind of buffer here.
It's quite a soft top.
It's softer than you'd think, yeah, relative to the bottom.
I see.
It seems a different thing entirely.
So in other words, a fast tapered rod.
Fast tapered, yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Now then, the advantages of this are that we get a lot of speed and power out of the sinker. And you monopolise on that by using a thin running line.
Yes. What breakage strain is that line?
That's 14.
That's 14 pounds.
Yeah.
But I notice here, this end bit is a lot thicker diameter.
Sure.
What breakage strain is this?
Well, that's around 50.
Around 50 pounds.
Because, as you'll appreciate, when you start casting hard, it's not very hard to snap 14, 20 pound line or more.
No.
So a shock leader is a standard part of your tackle.
I see, is there any formula for working out what breakage strain of shock leader you must use, depending on the size of lead that you're using?
Yeah, there is a safety formula more than a practical fishing formula. Number of ounces of lead times 10 results pounds.
So that's a 5 ounce lead, is it?
That's 5, so 5 times 10, 50, forget the ounces,
50 pound shock leader.
That's right.
I see, and then obviously you've got a 14 pound main line. The lighter the main line can be, the farther you're going to cast, surely.
Yeah. And the less effect you have of tide as well. That's an important factor.
Well, I'm going to stand back out of your way while you show us the first cast. What is this first cast? What's the name for it?
Well, it's called a pendulum cast. It's kind of more of a generic name than a specific style. Everyone works up his own theme.
Yeah. If I stand back out of the way, can you talk me through it and show me exactly what you're doing?
Well, what I'll do first, I'll go through the complete cast, because you see it's made up of 2 parts, the pendulum swing and the power flow.
I see.
I'm going to do them both together so you've got a sort of mental picture of what it looks like. Then we'll analyse it.
Right. I'll stand out of your way.
That's the whole cast. Now you notice it wasn't a 1-2 movement, it just flows together, okay?
Yeah.
Now when you're learning to do that, you've got to split it into 2 parts and learn the second part first. And that's a series of simple exercises which you can do on the beach or in a field or even at home. So we'll get on to those, and that will make the rod work.
Yeah.
And if the rod doesn't work, you might as well not bother casting. That's what does it. I'm going to start with a little exercise for you to make the rod work. Okay, you can't really go wrong on this one. You notice we were using that very long pendulum drop. Well, this time to start off, use about half the rod length. That's a nice easy length to use. Now let's get a few positions right in our mind to start with. That's the line out to sea that we're going to cast down. Okay? Now foot positions are the first thing to think of. Put your right foot with your toe just about on the line and your left foot about 6 inches to the left, and point your toe about 45 degrees out to the water. Now, a very important consideration when you're casting is that you cast up there, okay, not along there. You start casting purely for distance along, you'll be in all sorts of trouble. Get height, because if you get height, you must get distance. 45 degrees is about right, okay? Now, let's lay out the cast, and to save us all this problem of timing a pendulum swing when we really don't know what we're doing, put the sinker on the ground. Now, some checkpoints here. This blank is more or less in line with the line that we've drawn on the ground. Okay? You'll notice that the sinker and the leader are nicely aligned with the tip of the rod, and the rod tip's about 3 inches off the ground. Now this arm is almost straight. It's not forced out, it's just comfortably stretched out. And the reel position doesn't matter too much. Don't be like that, just be comfortable. Now, probably the most important thing when you start, particularly with a multiplier, is to have that line taut. Don't let it go all loose and horrible on you. Now then, identify your spot in the sky. Left elbow's high, very important. Too many people cast like that. We've got to be like so. Now, the cast is a pull of the rod to a position here where this arm won't really go up any further, and this one is nicely bent, ready to push. And then you follow through with a push and a pull. Let's run through the whole thing again in slow motion. Lay it out. Check your position. Pull through, turn over. Pretty simple. Probably 99% of the people who can't cast don't do that. And the few people who do learn to cast are really basing it on this sort of exercise because it makes that rod do what you want it to do. Otherwise, you might as well pick up the sinker in your hand and throw it out. Okay? So this time, I'll actually do the cast and you check through the sort of ingredients that have gone into it. Okay, I'm going to cast this time. So, check everything through. Every time you cast, when you're learning, check everything so you know where things are going to go wrong, and if something does go wrong, you know what didn't cause it, okay? So we're into feet position. That's where it's going to go. Lay it out. Sinker's on the ground, rod tips low, line taut. This arm in position, and then it's pull through and cast. And check that follow through position so that you're casting up there, not along there. Okay? Now what I'm doing here is just casting it against the clutch so that I haven't got to wind in every time. And we'll run through it just a couple more times so you can really see what it's about. Feet, aiming spot, sinker on the ground, tip low, arm, left elbow, look where you're going to cast, pull through, push and pull. Follow through. And just the last time. Feet up there, onto the ground, everything laid out at that end, arm, this elbow, very important, and pull, turn into your follow through. Okay? That's the basic exercise. A lot depends on that, so you want to get it right. 80 yards is about all you want to try to get out of it. The object isn't to get power or distance, it's to make the thing run properly. Yeah. So as you'll see now, we're going to move on to the next stage of the cast. We're going to put a little bit more power into it.
This is to do with your body, is it?
Yeah. We're still not ready to do a pendulum cast because there's an awful lot more muscles that we can bring into play before we bother about that fancy bit that precedes the pendulum cast.
All right, I'll let you get on with that, John,
right.
And I'll stand way out of your way again.
Right. What we're going to do now is find you some more casting power. We've been very upright and static, and this time I'm going to start to put some body movement into it. It's almost identical to the little exercise we've been doing, and the difference appears very little different, but in fact when you're doing it yourself, you feel weight transferring from your right leg to your left leg, and that itself is going to put a lot more push behind the cast. Now I'm going to change the stance and the layout just a little to make things work very efficiently. Go back to more or less the stance we were using. Now stance is an individual thing, and you may find you want to start altering a little bit at this point. Don't go to this stage where you're facing directly at the sea, and don't get yourself cross-legged. Just be natural and firm. Now, the layout we were using was directly down this casting line. Well, let's add about 15 degrees of rod arc, and this time, instead of just putting the thing down and going through the checklist from an upright position, emphasize the weight on that leg. Push that away from you. Your checkpoints are more or less the same. Sinker in line, rod tip low, arm fairly straight, this elbow high, that's your aiming spot. Now to run through slowly on the cast is pull through and transfer your weight, keep going and turn over.
And at the same time, John, transferring your weight from your right leg to your left leg in the direction of your cast.
Yeah, it's quite a subtle thing. You know, it's not sort of from here and then to there, because that's going to throw you over. But it's still positive. You feel the weight coming from this leg onto that leg. Yeah, it's ever so important. This time I'm going to cast it. So stretch away, run through those checkpoints we've been talking about, arms, rod tips and everything. Identify the spot, pull through, turn over. Okay?
Magic.
Now, that's going to start adding some distance. You should think in terms of casting 100 yards fairly easily. Again, it's something you want to go home and practice. Rather than do it when you're fishing, go onto a beach without any bait or whatever, or go into a field or what you want. And in fact, if you get yourself just the rod butt or a piece of broomstick or whatever, you can do a lot of these exercises at home. You do it indoors if you want to. It's the one thing that probably separates average casters from really good casters is self-discipline. And self-discipline is based on doing this thing over and over and over and over. You see, what happens, you think, well, that looks about right for this cast, for the stance, and the next cast it's here and then it's there, and the rod angle varies, and sometimes you've got 2 foot of drop, sometimes 6 foot of drop. Now when you make the cast, they go that way, that way, that way, you get overruns, and there's no way that you can identify where the fault lies. So you get more frustrated, you put more power in, you get more overruns, and you just get worse. Well, if you...
Exactly like you say, self-discipline yourself to an ABC.
Yeah, it's more difficult initially to say that foot goes there, that foot goes there, and keep doing it. And the rod goes out there, and the sinker goes there. And if you toss it out there, and it lands in the wrong place...
Trying to load that 15-degree angle every time.
Yeah.
Trying to keep your lead the same
Right.
distance of line to your lead.
Sure. If it's here one time, there the next, you're never going to get this consistency.
So if everything is the same, you can identify your fault.
Right. It can only be in this pull through and turnover. Check this follow through position as well. If you followed through there, you can't have made too bad a cast.
Yeah.
But if you're dumped down here, which a lot of people are,
then you retard the fly to the left.
yeah, you'd be casting very low and left.
Yeah. What's the next stage now, John?
We're still missing a lot of body power because your body can go that way, and it can also go that way. You can coil up like a spring. You can start here and feel yourself coil up. Now you can go around as far as you want. The limits are, physical flexibility. You could go right round to here. Some people can go right round to here. It's needless, but you can. What you do is you build gently onto it, okay? Just a few degrees at a time. Lengthen your drop a fraction. Same layout as before, essentially, but this time the sinker goes a little to the right and the rod goes round a bit more.
John, why have you lengthened the line now?
Well, the bigger swing you take, the longer leader drop you need
That
relative
makes
to the
sense.
blank lead.
Just 6 inches or so.
That's right. And as the rod goes round a little way, the sinker goes round further. In other words, instead of laying out straight relative to the rod tip, it forms its own angle at the rod tip.
Yes.
You see that?
Yeah.
So that eventually, if you were casting from...
45 degrees, say.
Yeah, if you were casting as we were using that layout, weren't we? But if we go round a bit more, we put the sinker further round. You see that?
15 degrees.
That's it. If we were going from here, you'd probably be there somewhere.
I see.
You see that?
Yeah.
And as you can see, that when the rod starts to move, look, it just follows through properly.
Yeah.
But if I lay it out here and then start moving the rod, you see we're nowhere near on the right plane. That's come in as a
straight line where the
Yeah.
come in as an arc.
While that sinker is outside of the rod arc, you're
Yeah.
wasting power.
Yeah.
If you can get it from inside, it'll move onto the right position.
The build-up of power.
And come through very smoothly. Yeah. Let's look at that cast first in slow motion, and then I'll actually do one or two for you. We're thinking in terms of real distance at this point. 130 yards plus is quite easy. And the development of this cast, where you take the very big arc round, is called the South African cast, which is capable of well over 200 yards. But we're not looking for that with this exercise. We're just looking to increase this arc. So we were from here, okay? This time I'm going to put it round to here. Now you notice my body started to coil, and as I do the cast, I turn my head, and it's a long pull of the body and the turn. You can see how everything's now exaggerated, okay? If I want to come round further, then I can put it down here. See how my body's really coiled now? And it's a long pull, 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 turn over. Okay? Still going up.
I can see the progression you're building up into now.
Yeah. So I'll do one of those for you. And let's look for a cast of around 130 yards to see what impression of speed and power you get. You'll probably be very disappointed. It doesn't look much. It's very easy. Here we go. Just lay it out neatly. Get it exactly where I want it. Go through the same checkpoints as before. That's where I'm going to cast. Arms are right. I'm going to pull through, cast, And that's well on its way out, still up in the air, coming down now.
Follow through sort of thing.
Yeah. That looked fairly easy, okay? And it was. Because good casting looks ever so easy, because you're making everything flow properly. And all these exercises we've been doing are aimed at that. Now, we set out to learn pendulum casting, and I haven't taught anything about pendulum casting. I told you about casting off the ground and about South African casting. Well, the reason is that all good casts are built on the same foundation of this power, flow and turnover that I've been showing you. The pendulum is something that's developed a charisma all of its own. People think it's a very exotic, difficult cast. And if you try to learn it as a complete section all in one, it is very difficult and not many people get it right. We've split it. We've done the second part, and that's locked into your mind now, so you can run through it automatically. The pendulum itself is a bit of an anticlimax, because all we're doing is running from this position, your natural layout position, okay? You're going to have to practice to find where your position is. Here might feel not enough, there might be too much of a strain. Everyone finds a position somewhere about here, and they say, yeah, that's really good, I can get everything locked in on it. Well, all I'm doing is transferring that sinker from the ground to a position here, where it will flow down and around.
Actually in the air?
Yeah, because look, this beach is okay. You could put on your baits, you could even put on a grip wired sinker and cast it. If you were in that, you couldn't do it. If you're up on the rocks, can't be done. So you need the versatility of a pendulum. Now, there's the layout. I'm going to run through a pendulum cast in its entirety for you, and then we'll analyse the pendulum part. But what you want to do this time is see how the main power arc of the cast is exactly what we've been learning up to now. So, I'm going to pick that weight up. It's no good to me there anymore. And I'm going to throw it here, bring it up here, and then come round in that same cast. Now you see how that's gone? Just hitting the water now.
John, that is a long way.
Okay, but it didn't look any more powerful, did it?
No. No, you didn't even put any extra power in at all.
Right, that's because I've used that sinker position to give me both time to do the cast. It's a very slow cast. Don't think the pendulum's fast. It's not. It's a myth that it's
speed isn't
fast.
distance.
It's very slow. The other thing is, I've increased that sinker travel, what, double?
Yes,
now,
momentum of it.
Yeah, now without forcing it into a backswing, i.e. generating power on that swing, I'm still getting a lot more power out of the cast just because of its position.
As it falls through the air, as it comes into the swing. It
just goes up there, and when it's about in the right position, down it comes and around it goes. And you saw that the casting action that I did from
sweep
here
round
on in was exactly the same as we've been doing before.
Exactly.
The blank position's different because by that point there, it's bent. Where it was straight when I started, it's curved up already against the pull of that sinker.
And just in the air.
Round and out.
Yeah.
Now then, the pendulum is something that needs practice on its own.
It's the start of the cast, the actual swing of the lead.
Yeah, it's not too easy to force it to come right unless you adopt some kind of pattern. Okay? There's a lot of people just swing the damn thing anywhere and they say, well, maybe it'll come into the right position, maybe it won't. And either they have 2 or 3 goes at it, or they stand there all day swinging it backwards and forwards, and it doesn't come right. It's the same as principle that we did on the little cast there. Set yourself some baselines.
Yeah.
Say, I'm going to do it that way. and if it goes wrong, stop and start again. You see how this line's coming back onto the spool evenly. And this little reel hasn't got a level wind on. Some have. It's a little bar that goes back and forwards, lays it on for you. But you get better performance and more line on the reel if you take that off. It's a standard practice among tournament casters and keen beach fishermen.
What sort of a reel is that, John?
Well, that's a pen level matic. There are 2 or 3 reels that are similar in size. This is a particularly tough one, and it's resistant to saltwater corrosion.
Obviously a good choice.
Yeah, it's a nice little reel. Here comes the line. You see we've got quite a lot out there, cranking away. It's still coming in evenly. You don't want to let it build up in the middle or at the edges or anywhere.
You're manoeuvring that with your thumb and guiding the line.
That's right. You see that finger and thumb? It's guiding the line. It's also putting some tension on.
Yeah.
Because look, if it goes slack and you get the coil going across, you can guarantee that it will come off and make an overrun next time. It's got to go on tight and even. Just fill the thing up. The last few yards don't matter quite so much. Here it comes. Now look, you see, that was the leader knot coming on. It's a bit of muck on there. Often the case that weed catches on a leader knot.
Yeah.
You want that off. It's got to be nice and clean. Now look, if you bring the leader knot into the middle of the spool, okay, on your next cast your thumb is right over it, and there's a sharp piece on there, a little tag end of nylon, and that's going to cut your thumb right down the centre. So when that leader comes on, put it to one side or the other, and then you can spread the leader across, more or less how you want. A fairly open pattern until you get the right drop. It doesn't matter if you start from there or from there, but the middle's a nice, easy position. Now you notice that spool grip there, thumb right over the top.
Yeah.
Don't play with the spool because you're going to burn yourself. Wrap yourself around it. Right, pendulum. Very easy if you go about it the right way. Lengthen your drop. Important.
By about how long, John?
Well, that's about 8'6". That's really a minimum length. This is an 11'6" rod, which is about right for learning to cast. You don't want to be more than 12 foot or less than 11.
So about 3/4 of the rod length?
Yeah, more or less. If you want to, put yourself a piece of sticky tape on the blank so that you get the same drop.
You've got the same length every time, yeah.
Now look, foot position's the same. Everything's the same as before, except we're transferring from here to up here. Now to make the pendulum flow, you do it like this. Hang that weight near the blank. Then you push out with your right arm, pull back with your left. Do you see that? Let's do that again. Lift it up to the starting position. Push out, push back.
So it's your left arm that's making it swing back and
Yeah,
through.
look, let me just wrap this round here somewhere. That's the start, okay? Now you push out with that arm, okay? Then it's push with that. You see, this stays where it is. A very common mistake is to push out, lift back. And we'll see in a minute that that is one of the nastiest things you can possibly do when you're learning. You want that there, leave it there. So it's push, push. Then you see as you turn, your rod drops and you're back into that position, you come through to there and over it goes.
It's only in that position that your left hand comes in.
Right.
But you don't let go of it, of course.
Okay. So here's the cast. Now, height of the backswing. If you do a very tiny pendulum, nothing's going to happen, okay? See why you need to do a pendulum, right? The height up on the backswing doesn't matter as long as it's high enough. Now how do you know that? Because it feels as if the weight's gone. There's a distinct pause, and if you look at the rod tip carefully,
It'll always be under pressure.
it loses its pressure There, see it?
Yeah.
But that's a pause, you can feel it. Any time in that pause, you can cast. It might even go right the way over the top. But you pick the cast up properly anyway. It makes no difference.
So if you ever feel it goes slack, you've gone too high with your swing.
If it goes slack, you're high enough. Well, slack's not the right word, because slackness is where that leader's all wavy. It's tight, but the pressure goes off. It feels as if it's gone into a vacuum or something. It's a distinct pause in the action, okay? And here's the cast. Push out, push down, pull through and turn over. Down it goes in the water now.
Dearie me.
That's a pretty average type fishing cast. That probably went out there 175 yards or so.
You're looking all the long way to me.
Well, that's all you need to do to catch fish. I don't think there's tremendous advantage in casting further than that, except of course it's fun to do it. Now, you saw how the whole thing flowed together, right? It's a very smooth, easy cast, and it's slow from my end. It feels slow, and it might not entirely look it to you,
Really
but I'm
not.
not doing anything much. Did you notice that I'm generating so much power when I come through now that as I go into follow through, my feet move?
Yes.
Yeah? Well, that's because I can't stop. When I'm coming through nice and fast, I naturally take a step. I don't deliberately take it. And you certainly should never
Refrain
force
yourself.
the follow through. What you do, quite a good point, if you're not getting height in a cast, is you come through and you hold, you cut there. You know, it's just like filmmaking. You get to there, cut. You don't follow through. A lot of guys follow through and do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. You come through, you cut there, and the momentum of your cast will take you onto your other foot. Particularly on this stuff, look.
Yeah.
Now, what are you likely to do wrong on a pendulum cast? Number one, you start hitting the ground for a variety of reasons, and you apply the logic. You think, if I'm hitting the ground, it's because the leader drop is too long, so we shorten the leader drop, and you find you hit the ground all the more. If everything is more or less correct in your technique, to avoid hitting the ground, you lengthen the drop.
Lengthen it.
Lengthen the drop, yeah. And slow down.
That's going to be opposite to what everybody's going to think.
That's
Sort
right.
of what I think anyway.
That's right. And the other thing you naturally suppose is that you start the cast more quickly. You don't. You slow down. If you're hitting the ground, lengthen the drop, slow down.
Two totally opposite points to what one would think.
Absolutely. Now, another thing on pendulums. Remember we started to a pattern which came here and it went out, back, and then we do the cast. Now if I go wrong, I stop. What you can't do is say, right, push it out, it's not quite right this time, let's correct it, go back, do it this time, well that's not quite right. You know, you're doing this and your feet are moving and you turn to face the cast, then you're in trouble. Work to the
Stop
pattern.
completely.
If it goes wrong, stop, kill it on the ground. Now the other thing, very common, is to pendulum it this way, across the rod. Doesn't matter how beautifully you do it, won't work.
It's wrong.
Totally wrong. It's got to come fairly close to the blank. There's another mistake that's very common. It's endemic. I'd guess 99% of the casters do it at some stage. It's later in the cast, but it's associated with pendulum problems. You know, we go through on this pull of the body. It's very much like a javelin pull from here, okay? That we've been doing all through the exercises. Well, what happens is that the left arm gets lazy and the cast becomes a bowling action. You see this? This is the line that the rod should come up. It's going along its length to this point, and then it's turning over. You see all that nice arc we've got to put power in. As soon as you drop this arm, this one compensates and it goes over. Now from this point onward, from here, it doesn't matter what you do, you've lost it anyway, because this is dead ground. The rod's too far over. It only reaches this point there on the proper cast, but on the wrong cast, it's there. You've had it, you've lost all that. Guard against that one. Problem with a lazy left arm is usually caused by concentrating on distance, not on height. See, what happens is this. You start practicing, it doesn't matter if it's a pendulum cast or the little practice thing we've been doing, and you think, cast up there, nice, and your left arm goes up naturally, pull through, beautiful. Then you think, must get more distance. So you lay it all out nicely and you think, where's distance? Distance is there. You look along, because otherwise that's in the way. So as soon as that goes down, that comes over.
You lose the height.
You've had it. That's the very big mistake. It's where you get your overruns from as well. Now then, where you get to on your pendulum is up to you. That's good enough to fish. If you want to go around a bit further, that's fine. Let me make myself a bit more space. It's just as easy to do it from here. Up there, round there. Still in the air, coming down now. That's your 200-yard cast. That's the one that empties your reel.
Excellent job.
But you see, except for the fact that it's more extended, it's not really any different. You're just adding a bit more on, you know.
About the reels, how important is it, the tuning of the reels?
It is very important, but what you've got to consider above all else is that we should be tuning the reel so that it gives us the best performance for a good cast. We're not tuning it up to cover up mistakes. Little mistakes it will. Big mistakes are technique, and that's where you go back to drawing the line on the sand, going round with the rod, doing all the things we've been doing. So, I've got some reels in the bag and big spools, so we'll go across and take a look at them.
Tell you what, this wind's getting up a little bit, John, isn't it?
Yeah, typical Atlantic weather pattern.
Isn't it just?
Calm in the morning, blowing by midday. That's when you've got to retune your reel, you see.
You're going to show us about this tuning now. Is there a lot to it?
Not really.
Oh well.
If you're a genius. These are the most common kinds of reel for casting a long way from the beach. The main ingredients are that you've got a lightweight spool. That's important because, as you'll appreciate, when we let go of the weight in the middle of the cast, there's a sudden acceleration. And if you've got the spool that's too heavy, it's slow to start, and then it becomes ever so fast, and you can't control it, and that's where you get an overrun. Yeah, that's right. And the other consideration, of course, is that on a multiplier reel, every inch of line on the reel turns in every cast. Right? So use a fairly small one, and this is typical of the size. Now, tuning these reels is more a question of maintenance than anything else. They run on ball races, and you keep those clean, stop the salt and the grit getting in. Oil them with something fairly light, 3-in-1 oil or 2050 motor oil. You shouldn't really need anything thicker. Keep the thing clean, because any salt that gets into the cage will eventually corrode it, and you can snap it off from the reel seat.
There's nothing worse than salt water for corroding things, is there?
Well, it's very fierce stuff, and it's particularly bad if you leave your reel dirty between trips. if it's wet when you're fishing, that's not too much of a
So
problem.
the golden rule is to clean it after every trip, once
Sure.
you get home.
Yeah, clean water, and then some of this WD-40 spray and get it all nice. Now, to tune it, the system you've got in here is a brake block mechanism inside this half, and a drag system that tightens up on the end of the spindle here. Now you should try not to use this one, because this causes the spool to bind in the bearings, and you get mechanical wear, and it also strips an awful lot of distance off. So set this so that you can just feel some side play in the spool. And now you go on to control the thing with the brake blocks. Now, I don't want to take that apart because brake blocks fall out very easily, but you can see the brake blocks in here. They're just on a spindle across the spool. There's a big one and a small one here. It doesn't matter what combination you use, as long as you get one that's right for you. Now, when you're learning to cast, when you take your reel out when you get home, put 2 big ones in, because that's going to give you very good control. And when you get into the cast and you're feeling confident, cut it to 2 mediums perhaps, and then go down to 1 medium. You can use 1, it won't imbalance the reel at all, or 2 baby ones, or just 1 baby one.
Okay.
Now in this one where I was practicing today, I've got 2 small blocks because the wind was blowing into our faces and I want to slow the reel just a little bit.
The smaller the blocks, then the freer it is to
That's
rotate.
right, that's right. And you can go down to a very small one.
Very good. What's this reel here? Is it just a stepped-up version of that, is it?
Yes, it is. You'll appreciate that you have a wide variety of fishing conditions. The British Isles presents all kinds of situations, and you can't say that is the reel to use. You've got to use a reel for this and a reel for that. Well, the baby one like this is fine for light fishing and pure distance casting. A lot of beaches you'll find that you tear some of this generation of reel apart. This one's okay, it's fairly tough, but some of the others, you know, you go fishing once and the spool's broken or the gears are stripped. You need a certain amount of toughness. At some stage it comes down to being you and the conditions, or you and the fish, and you've got to master it.
That's a real tough game.
This is a tough one. It's the construction's the same. Essentially, you've got the same gears, the star drag here. That's something.
Tell me about this star drag, which I didn't mention it on the small reel. I saw it, but I didn't mention it. Tell me about the star drag on this reel.
It's just the braking system that controls how line runs off when a fish is taking
Oh, I see.
line off of your reel.
The drag sort
Yeah,
of thing.
the more you tighten it down, the stiffer the spool becomes.
The harder it is for a fish to take line.
That's it. So you preset the thing according to the braking strain of
The
your
line you use it.
Generally, you can leave it there. This is the free spool lever. It's a lever on this reel and a button on the other one. All it does is disconnect the gears so that the spool's free to turn. Tuning procedure is essentially the same as far as oils are concerned, but you notice on this side plate here is an adjustable screw. Well, at the base of that is a very strong magnet. The closer the magnet lies to the spool, the more braking effect it has on the spool.
Oh, I see.
So it's doing the same job as the brake blocks, but it's a better system because you can back it out progressively. In blocks, you work in stages.
And of course, you've got to strip the reel down to get to those blocks.
That's right. With this one, it's an integral unit. It's nicely sealed. If you want to make little adjustments as the weather changes when you're fishing, you screw it in a bit or back it out. And again, if you're casting properly, if the reel's filled nicely with line, you know, we talked about putting it evenly, then you shouldn't have any trouble at all. So if you're getting overrun after overrun after overrun on a well-tuned reel, it's because you're doing something wrong, and you'd better look at technique.
Yeah.
Now, to some extent, you can get over all those problems by using the reel that you're obviously a lot more familiar with, which is the fixed spool.
That's right.
Now, from a distance point of view, there isn't really a disadvantage in a fixed spool.
You can get the same distance with that reel as what you can with the multiplier which you were casting with.
Very close to it.
Are the techniques that you use are exactly the same?
The cast is identical, but of course it's a different system of holding the reel. And there are 2 points to consider on this. Number 1 is that if you cast very hard, the spool tends to rotate in the middle of the cast. And if it does that, you've got the line running across your finger and it'll cut in. So you must lock that drag Now, some reels lock up very easily, but you will find that the better quality reel you have, and the sturdier the clutch on the front, the less likely it is to lock up easily. It's designed not to. Now, if you have any problems there, the worst thing to do is to keep winding the thing down, because you'll strip the threads or pop the spool or something. I do this very simple modification where I drill a little hole in here, see, and I've got a stainless steel clip that's anchored to the stand of the reel. When I want to cast, I just clip it in there, and that locks the spool up. That's not going to move at all now.
Turn anymore.
No. Now, apart from that, the reel's standard, except for the bail arm. You see that wire's gone?
Yes.
Well, now, this is another endemic fault of fixed spool reels. They all do it. You pull back the bail arm to cast, to release the line, as you used to. You do the big cast, and the inertia generated by the handle flips the bail arm over.
In the middle of the cast.
That's right. So it immediately snaps the line. Now, by taking this bail arm off, we tend to prevent that because the whole mechanism's lighter. But even if it does snap, it doesn't matter, it's not going to catch. So you have to use your finger to put the line back afterwards.
When you're ready to retrieve.
That's right. Now, you notice the reel is full with line. That's ever so important. In freshwater fishing, you're probably better off keeping your line level lower, aren't you?
Well, we use about 3/16 of an inch below this lip.
Okay. You haven't got the same problems of distance and friction and so on. Now, when you change to sea fishing, you're going to use thicker line, and you've got to top that reel right up to the top. And I've noticed that an awful lot of freshwater fishermen, when they turn to sea fishing, they still use that very limited loading up of line. Well, you've got to fill the thing right up. If necessary, to keep cramming it on. You'll soon know when you've got too much on, because it comes off in loose coils. And that's the time to reduce it. Also, put it on as tight as you can. It'll twist as well, and there's nothing you can do about twist except cut off some line. If you know, when we were winding the line onto the multiplier, it was coming through on my finger and thumb, and I was putting the tension on. Well, I use the same tension system when I'm winding in on the fixed spool. Now, that tends to comb out the twists and concentrate them on the last 5 or 10 yards before the shock leader comes on. Well, after I finish fishing for the day, I cut that section off. You've got to do it, 5 or 10 times before you have any real effect on the line load, and then when you have, you just put some more underneath.
Yes.
So that's a very simple system. The only other thing you want to get for a fixed spool cast is a finger guard. Now, you can make these out of an old leather glove, and you sometimes buy them. It's just a finger stall, a bit of leather here. Leather's better than plastic, and the strap goes around your wrist. And the technique, of course, is to get your leader drop. You see, you're holding it on that.
Yeah.
And really, that's guaranteed to give you a better cast.
Yeah.
I don't know many people who can use a fixed spool reel with a bare finger, but I know a lot of people who try get nasty cuts, and they tend to get frightened of it.
Yeah.
You see, it's very important to be relaxed when you're casting a fixed spool, because the release mustn't be like that. You mustn't sort of jerk this thing away. What you do is you let the pull of the line free itself.
Almost move your finger out of the way.
With the line itself and the tension in it, just pull your finger. You come through into the cast and you just relax.
You get the feel on your finger. Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
You find it's automatic.
Yeah.
I haven't talked about release on casting because it is an automatic thing. And a lot of people suppose that they're having trouble with it when in fact they're not. It's probably the last thing you should ever look at, except this business of being scared. And if you get one of these, well, it doesn't matter. You can see this is abraded pretty badly now. The only thing is, if you get a leather one, which feels better and gives you a nice release, get 2. Because if it rains and this gets wet, they go sticky and they will tend to cut and slip off your finger.
I see.
Yeah. That's all you need to know about reels. Don't worry about them too much. Keep them clean, tune it up as I've shown you, and if you get trouble, if you get line tangle or rough running on a fixed spool, or if you get backlash on your multiplier, the fault is in the way you're casting. And you must avoid the habit of blaming the reel. It's you. If you've got the right reel and it's running, it's your fault if you get an overrun.
I'm really looking forward to when John comes down to showing us terminal rigs and methods on various British beaches. So from me, here on Dingle Peninsula, till then, tight lines.